Ever finish a book and think, man, that was interesting, but I wish I could just like download the main ideas?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, this deep dive into the Bitcoin standard, it's for you then.
Definitely.
Whether you're, brand new to Bitcoin or you've been HO dealing since like forever.
Yeah.
We're going to dig into the surprising history stuff this book uses
Right.
to show why sound money matters, even now, in the digital age and all.
Yeah, it's clever how they do that. The book makes the case that you can't really get Bitcoin unless you understand the history of money, period.
So true. Okay, so let's jump in. Early on, the author talks about these giant scones, rice stones, they called them, used as money on this island. Yep.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Like, I'm picturing having to roll a boulder to the grocery store every time I need milk.
Yeah.
But seriously, what's the lesson here? How'd these, unwieldy giant rocks work as money for centuries?
Well, you got to think, those race stones, almost impossible to fake. You couldn't just, whip up more out of thin air.
True, true.
And that gets to what the book says is at the core of good money. It's not about the thing itself, but how hard it is to mess with.
So you're saying the harder it is to just make more of something,
Yeah.
the better it is as money. That's kind of wild when you think about it.
It does seem counterintuitive, but that's a huge idea in this book. He calls it the stock-to-flow ratio. Basically, how much new supply can pop up compared to what's already out there.
Okay, so high stock to flow means something scarce.
Mm-hmm.
And scarcity, like with those crazy stone coins,
Right.
that equals stability.
Exactly. And this all comes back to Bitcoin big time. But first, the book goes on this whole fascinating detour into empires.
Yeah. This is where I thought things got really interesting.
Right.
It says, the Roman Empire, they were doing great under Caesar with those gold aureus coins.
Right, right.
But when Nero came along, started messing with the coins, debasing them, things went downhill fast.
Yeah, that's a big point the book makes, messing with the money that messed with Rome. Seriously. Well, think about it. A stable currency, like they had with the aureus, it let people plan for the future.
Makes sense.
That kind of stability, it makes people want to save money, invest in new ideas.
And that leads to
A booming economy. The book even links the gold standard in the 1800s, remember? That's all about sound money, to all these inventions happening. Cars, telephones, indoor plumbing.
Okay, I'll admit, at first I thought, come on, that's a stretch. But honestly, he kind of makes a good case. So, good money, stable economy. Everyone wins, basically.
Thanks, Bo.
But
Yeah.
then it all kind of went wrong in the 20th century, right?
Yeah. World War I especially. Huge drain on everybody's budget. Countries needed a way to pay for the war, and they all turned to this dangerous tool, the printing press.
Ah, the allure of just making more money? Why not just print more if you need it?
That's where things get complicated.
So basically, world goes off the gold standard, government's printing money like it's going out of style.
Yep.
And that leads to, what, massive inflation, right? Sounds like a recipe for disaster, honestly.
It was.
And this is where Bitcoin comes in. It's the hero in this whole story.
That's how the book frames it, yeah. The Bitcoin standard. It's saying Bitcoin fixes the problems that fiat currency created.
Bold statement.
It is.
But how? How's it any different from the money we use every day?
Remember that stock to flow thing?
Yeah.
Bitcoin's built different. It's designed to be scarce. Only 21 million Bitcoins ever. That's it. That's all there is.
No matter what, nobody can just print more. Even if, the whole world wants in.
Exactly. That limited supply, plus the fact that Bitcoin's crazy secure, it's almost impossible to fake, even harder to manipulate.
Okay, I see how that lines up with the sound money idea, but
Yeah,
Bitcoin's digital, right? Just lives online.
Right.
Does that make it, more risky
Yep.
than regular money?
That's what a lot of people think. But the book breaks it down well. Remember how gold's tough to counterfeit because it's physically hard to copy?
Mm.
Bitcoin's got that same kind of security, but it's all digital. Cryptography, they call it, and this decentralized network.
Oh, big words. Break those down for me.
Haha, sure. Imagine instead of one bank or the government controlling all the money. It's like this huge e-network of computers all over the world.
Okay.
And they're all working together to check every transaction, making sure there's no funny business. That's basically Bitcoin. Like a giant puzzle that's always changing so nobody can cheat it.
So instead of trusting, the government or whatever, you're trusting math and this network.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That's why this book's causing such a stir. It's saying Bitcoin isn't just tech. It's social, political even.
Well-
Could shift power away from, the big guys, give it back to everyday people.
Okay, now I see why people are freaking out about this book. Haha. But hold on, let's switch gears for a sec. This bezel thing. Catchy name, kind of creepy vibe, though.
Right.
What's that all about?
So, the bezel. That's what the author calls any industry that only exists because money is easy to come by. It warps the market, basically.
So, like, when money's cheap, people invest in dumb stuff.
Yep.
Things that wouldn't survive if money was actually scarce.
Exactly. The book says the bezel exists because of bad money, and it just makes us worse at using resources well. Less productive long term.
Ouch, that's got to sting for some people to hear. Give me some examples. What kinds of things are we talking about here?
He points to a bunch, actually, government agencies that never shrink no matter how useless they get.
Uh-huh, okay, yeah.
Financial bubbles, where everyone's speculating with easy credit. Even some parts of the art market where prices are just, like, bonkers.
Wild. Lot to think about there. So we've got this system, right? Easy money.
Yeah.
Props up all this unsustainable stuff, wastes resources, maybe even makes the economy more unstable long term.
Right, right.
Do you wonder, is there another way? Is Bitcoin really the answer?
Yeah.
Or is sound money just a nice idea, but not realistic?
That's the big question, right? The Bitcoin standard, it's not like it's got all the answers.
Sure.
But it does paint a picture of a future where sound money, it's back in charge, running the show, financially speaking.
Okay, so let's say, just for fun, more and more people do start using Bitcoin. What's that world look like? What actually changes?
Well, the book argues pretty big power shift, potentially.
How so?
For, ever, governments. They've had a monopoly on money, right?
Right.
They decide how much gets made, who gets it, what it's worth. That control, that's a huge part of how governments, govern.
Makes sense. Fund social programs, build stuff, even wars.
Right.
All comes back to controlling the money.
Exactly. Bitcoin kind of throws a wrench in that. It's decentralized.
Yeah.
Nobody's in charge. Not really. Not even the biggest government can just mess with it.
So if enough people were like, forget dollars, I'm using Bitcoin, governments would lose a lot of power.
That's the theory. Couldn't just print their way out of debt anymore. Have to be a lot more careful about how they spend our taxes.
Whoa, that's a huge change. Almost like we go from centralized power to something way more spread out.
Yeah.
Democratic, almost, but with money.
It's a fascinating idea, right? The book talks about how Bitcoin could give power back to people, to communities. Control over their own money,
But let's be real. Sounds great on paper, but Bitcoin's volatile, right? Price goes up and down like crazy. And what about the whole criminal activity thing? Isn't that a risk?
Totally valid concerns. And the book, to its credit, doesn't ignore those. Any new tech, there's going to be risks, right? Growing pains.
So what's the solution?
Well, take the volatility thing. Part of that's just because Bitcoin's new, right?
Yeah.
Smaller market. More people use it, understand it. That should stabilize.
Right.
And crime, yeah, Bitcoin can be used for bad stuff, but it's also way more transparent than cash, way more. Cops are getting better at tracking it, and the tech itself can be used to make things more secure, more transparent, so it cuts both ways.
Interesting. So after this deep dive,
Yeah.
going through the Bitcoin standard, I think what sticks with me is money. It's not just about the numbers,
Totally.
It's about power, freedom, the kind of world we want to live in even.
100%. This book makes you question everything you thought you knew about money. Those systems, they affect our lives whether we realize it or not.
And maybe, just maybe, the future involves going back to sound money, just,
Yeah.
with a digital twist.
One thing's for sure, the whole Bitcoin thing, this is just the beginning.
Well, there you have it, folks. The Bitcoin standard. Money, power, and maybe changing the world. Hope this deep dive gave you something new to think about.
Until next time, stay curious.